This is our introduction to Chapter 19, which is the ecology of populations and communities. We're going to really start with populations, and this is a brief introduction, and I'm going to describe the characteristics of populations here. But uh, before I do that, I want to say a little bit about ecology. Ecology is the study of the interactions of organisms with one another and their environment. We can focus on individuals or larger groups. And we might focus on something like the energy or the nutrients or the numbers of individuals present and what it takes for them to survive and reproduce. Ecology is really the study of connections in nature. We talk about competition and predation and mutualism. Um, there are a hierarchy of just like we talked about atoms, molecules, cells, and organs. Now we're going to start talking about higher levels like organisms, populations, and communities. And so the first one we'll really deal with are populations, but this can lead us to studies of the interaction of humans and their effect on their environment, on how they change it, things like that. So it's really kind of big picture type stuff. No microscopes here. So we're going to first focus on populations. It's a group of individuals of the same species in one place within a range. These individuals within a population can potentially interact and in particular interbreed so that they share genes. Um, the population itself has features that individuals don't have. It has features like a density, number of individuals per square kilometer or square mile, patterns of spacing, age structures, changes in the population size over time. These are the kinds of things that population ecologists are interested in. And it can help us predict changes to the population, changes to its size, what might happen to it. This is really important when we're talking about populations that we depend on for food. The upper species there is a tuna, and so we don't want to fish too many of them. It's a renewable resource as long as we don't harvest too many. So we have to make sure the population can recover. In the lower population there is wolves, and so we're often very concerned about the effect of species that we may not like or may have a negative impact. Populations have lots of characteristics. One is their age structure, how many young individuals versus how many old individuals. Populations that are growing rapidly have large numbers of young individuals. Populations that are declining often have small numbers of young individuals and more older individuals. So we can talk about that. We can talk about how populations change over time. There are different models for how populations grow when they get to a certain size. The line in red there is called exponential growth. We see that when populations have unlimited resources and are able to grow very fastly. The line in blue shows it represents logistic growth, whereas the population approaches a higher density, it has more and more trouble growing, and so it's limited by some factor in the environment. Populations that tend to be limited by at the carrying capacity respond to environmental resistance. Those are often density dependent factors, things that affect individuals more as the population is more and more dense, like predators or competition, or maybe the availability of food or how frequently they get disease. Populations that have exponential growth aren't limited usually by these factors, and for them it's more likely weather or geological events, catastrophes that kind of set them back. Populations also have characteristics that we sometimes call life history traits or survivorship traits. These are traits that kind of suit a certain population to either maybe grow at a carrying capacity, or individuals can survive then, or maybe grow quickly but not do well at carrying capacity. So the how fast they can grow depends on the age of first breeding for adults, the number of fertile periods, the number of offspring they have per litter, the number of litters. And here we see patterns. These are different patterns of survivorship. Oysters lay lots of eggs, but most of the eggs are going to get eaten by something else. It's only when they reach kind of their adult size that they have a good chance of surviving. And so the number of individuals drops very, very quickly. But individuals can reach old age. Some organisms, it's just random, and so they have a steady decrease in the numbers. And like humans, we tend to have pretty good survivorship until we get to a certain age, and then we're likely to pass away no matter what. Okay, so natural populations, we study them to kind of see what happens, and often some populations remain stable, and so they remain near the carrying capacity. Others are cyclic, and so they'll go in these cycles up and down. These are snowshoe hare populations and lynx populations that kind of track one another, and so the lynx depends on the snowshoe hare, and so the populations track. Invasive species are often eruptive, which means they occur in huge numbers. And so those are species that enter new habitats and usually aren't limited by density-dependent factors. And so you've some things there. So there's the linked populations. Populations are very important. As I mentioned, when we exploit populations like in hunting or fishing, we can manage those resources so that those populations so that they're a renewable resource. But that means not harvesting so many individuals that we start depleting the population. Generally, populations grow most quickly when they're near 50% of their carrying capacity. And so we don't want to harvest more than half of the population or half its carrying capacity. This is also really important with threatened and endangered species. We want to be able to save those things and prevent populations from collapsing. And so that's a really important thing. And that can happen for humans as well. We can have almost eruptive things, or we can have populations collapse. So we'll talk more about humans in the next lecture. Here we just, to summarize, we can predict the growth of plant, animal, and human populations by observation and using two basic models, the exponential and logistic growth. We know about factors that affect population size, density-dependent factors, as well as density-independent factors. Organisms that have opportunistic life history traits may rapidly increase in new habitats, but they generally have low survivorship. Organisms that have equilibrium life history traits, they do well near carrying capacity, but they may decrease if too many are harvested, and so we have to be careful. Okay, so we'll have another program on this on Monday, and we'll see how that goes. So starting chapter 19, I will open a Moodle quiz for us so that we can work on that. That will be the last one. All right, see you later.